Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to the Modernize or Die CFML News Edition podcast. It's May 12th, 2020, and I'm Gavin Pickin, Ortus Solutions Software Consultant, and I have Brad Wood with me today, who's the lead architect for Ortus Solutions.
I was going to say professional yak shaver, but that works.
Sometimes it seems like that's what we're working on, right? Okay, well, let's start off by thanking our sponsors, Ortus Solution. So you can get live training from the makers of your favorite box product. And Into the Box 2020 was last week. It was a great conference, and recordings are going to be available on our new product we announced last week, CFCast, very soon. So please check that out when we announce that officially.
What about your least favorite box products?
Well,
can you get support on those as well? Like if Command Box is just really ticking you off, can you still get support? Does that still work?
Yeah, I guess almost any box product. We did sunset a couple of products, but you probably wouldn't even recognize them. So that's okay.
There's a reason we sunset them.
Yeah. And we also want to thank our Patreon supporters. We got another new supporter this last week, Carl von Stetten. And I think he just did that so he could be on the list again, because he was on the list previously, and then he's signed up again. So
he missed it.
Thank you, Carl. Yep. And so we're at 45% of being fully funded now for our podcast, thanks to our Patreon supporters at patreon.com/ordersolutions. So thank you everybody for that, and thanks for helping making things like this podcast and our open source initiatives, a possibility. So first on the news, we have Adobe ColdFusion Developer Week next week. Can't believe it's here already.
Yeah. It's a lot of content coming up, and it is all virtual. So they're kind of spreading it out over a few days. Is that right?
Yeah, so they've got 2 sessions a day over the 5 days. And so it's pretty much the same content you would have got if you went to CF Summit East. But this time it's all virtual, all online, and just as before, it's all free to watch. So as long as you register, you get the link sent out to you so you can watch the sessions. And I believe they have one earlier in the day and one late in the day, so hopefully it works for all time zones. So it's got some interesting information about it though too. So I guess you can get CPE credits for doing these sessions too.
Now, what is a CPE credit, Gavin?
I assumed it was continuing professional education, but I'm not sure what industries need that or require it. But I know, like as teachers and everything, there's certain things you can do. Keep your continuing education credits going. You're required to do so many per year or whatnot. So I thought that was interesting. And also sounds like they're basically every session promises an exciting raffle draw where you can have the chance to win a $100 gift card as well.
Wow.
So yeah, so they're going all out, trying to make us show up. So next week, yeah, all 5 days. So it looks like a good session. Like I said, I know we've got some of the community members that we're all familiar seeing at all these conferences. We've got Charlie Earhart and Pete Freitag, and I believe Nolan Erk is going to be there too. But if you go to cfdevweek.meetus.adobeevents.com, you can check out all the information there. And they have actually a whole page on the CPE credits and everything too. So I just shared that in that group. So, but yeah, so we have Dave Watts speaking. We have Bruno Zugay, Luis Mahano, Rex Sheaf, Brian Class, Dave Ferguson, Pete Freitag, Charlie Earhart, and Brian Sappi. So there's a pretty good group. And then the opening keynote, I believe, is going to be a combination of the Adobe team members. So pretty cool.
Excellent. Looking forward to all that. So
Yep.
Speaking of conferences, we had a busy week last week. At least you and I did.
Yep. Into the Box last week. I think it was an overall a pretty good success. What do you think?
It was a heck of a lot of fun, if nothing else. But we had tons of people. Every session was standing room only in the Zoom virtual rooms.
Yep.
And we had the little virtual office going on with the Sococo program, and you could go between rooms and visit the sponsor booths all online.
Yeah, it was kind of cool to see who was in which session, and you could find people to see where they're at, and you could chat with them. And I know
Yeah,
a lot of people were, starting up their own little calls to chit chat in the break rooms or in the breakout rooms after the sessions. And there was
yeah.
a
It
couple of
wasn't.
things that they could have fixed. So we got some bug improvements for Sakoko. One is
Yeah,
the notification defaults could have been better. When you got over 120 odd people entering the keynote, and every time someone enters,
yeah.
your thing goes ding, ding,
Gavin
ding,
enters the
ding.
room. Gavin leaves the room. Brad enters the room. Yeah,
Yeah,
a little busy. But I mean, it's not the same as a real life conference, but at least gave us a little bit of feel of being able to kind of see who was there and go into rooms and talk with them. So
yeah. And I like the fact that, you had like these little people avatars that moved around, and there was all these little tables and
yeah,
chairs set up, and Edgardo was managing my room when I did one of my talks, and he had to get more virtual tables to bring into the room because there was no room for anyone to sit down. So he was
I
bringing in
mean,
tables in there. It was pretty funny.
the one thing you thought you wouldn't have to do with a virtual conference is crap. We're out of tables. Go get more.
Yep. So that was kind of fun. But as people were saying in the chat, John Farrar said he'll say it again. It was the best virtual conference he's ever attended to date. And
And we didn't even have to pay John that much to say that.
yep. And then Sean Oden, he agreed, and yeah, a lot of things. But he did mention Sakoko was a lot like ColdFusion 3. There's room to improve, and but considering we picked it up last minute, and it gave the conference that little virtual conference feel instead of just a bunch of Zoom meetings that you got invited to. So
Yeah.
so yeah.
But I mean, overall, the sessions had lots of interaction. People were asking questions and having fun, and it was still kind of nice that we were able to just unmute the mics for some of our end of the day wrap ups and just let everybody talk and share. So that was pretty good as well.
Yeah, and with that being said, we did have the keynote stream live, and so
Hmm.
we'll share
Both
those.
days.
Yep, both days are streamed live. And at the end of the first day, we had sort of an ad hoc chit chat, like you said, with open mics. As a Modernize or Die conference edition, basically live from Into the Box. So if you want to hear us ramble on and ask a few questions to some of the participants and see what their thoughts were of the day so far and what they're looking forward to, we have that up on YouTube, and that link's going to be in there as well. So, but it was yeah, I think it went really well. I got through my 3 sessions and my keynote without completely passing out. I did get some sleep as well during the week, which is always a tough one. But a lot of great announcements during the conference too, and just a couple that I wanted to make a special note of. You'll be getting blog posts coming out from Ortus soon, but one of the products we announced was CB Commerce. So it's an open source commerce platform for CFML coming out later this year. And so we've been working on that for a long time, and we even considered making a commercial product, but we decided that, to really help the community and CFML in general, we wanted to make it open source and freely available so everybody can build on top of it. So we thought it'd be, good for CFML, and so that will be coming out soon. And John Clausen actually mentioned that in one of the keynotes. And then the most important thing up for Into the Box is CFCast, our new video training platform, will be available very soon, and that's where all the Into the Box videos are going to be. So if you were an attendee, you'll get those free, but there'll be subscription plans and purchasing options if you didn't attend the conference to be able to purchase those. And we'll be doing screencasts and a lot of other video content coming out through CFcasts very soon. So I know we're finalizing that, editing all the videos, trying to get them all ready to release here pretty soon.
Yeah, I think Eric's actually working on getting CFcast polished off today. So
Yep.
hopefully we'll have those videos like uber fast. Be like
Yeah.
Uber Eats, but it'll be Uber videos.
Yep. Exactly. It's gonna be good. I can't wait to get it out there because a few of the sessions that I wanted to go to, I was up against. Like Sean Oden had a session because at the same time as mine, so we both missed each other's, and we really wanted to see those. So we're hoping we can, get all those videos out to everybody so we can see it very soon. So it's modeled a
Scott
lot on.
asks if. Oh, sorry. I was going to say Scott Steinbeck just asked in the chat if it's a ColdBox view site. I assume he means CFcasts. I have no idea.
I've seen little bits of it. I know he's using Tailwind. I'm not sure how much of it is in view, but it's sort of modeled after the Lowercast videos and everything. So
I know Eric made it a while ago and had just never got it like finished and pushed out there. So it's kind of been sitting around waiting for him to finish it off. And this is kind of the perfect time to put it into place. But I'm sure Eric will put some information out on how it's built. Of course, once we push it out there, you can probably just go look at it. But
Yep, exactly. But yeah, so
everybody else in the world is watching the videos. Scott Steinbeck's right-click view source. Ooh, what's going on in here?
yep, exactly. So, but there was some great content. I really liked Scott's talk. Working with a Raspberry Pi and a lighting setup, and it had a special light, so every time Brad tweeted, it would go off. That was pretty cool.
My favorite part, right there.
Yep, and in the chat, John's jumping ship here, and he's talking about Relax 4. 4.1 was released this last week, and John is right. We completely rewrote the backbone Relax front end all the way to Vue. So John got crazy and updated that. So Relax 4.1.0 is released. There's a lot of work to work with the enhancements of the Open API v3 support. So better formatting display of the new to 3.0 request body schema and properties, and yeah, be completely rewritten in Vue.js. So that's definitely a big plus there. And now it's much better dealing with those huge API files that hopefully you guys are all creating.
Oh yeah, we had so many releases and things announced into the box. I believe that Paulina is actually putting together a blog post that covers just all of the announcements we made during our keynotes, which I
There's
think
a
should be
lot.
coming out very soon this week.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the releases were all sort of waiting for into the box, and so those blog posts are going to start flying out as well. So you'll hear those in the next week or two. But those are the two I really wanted to spotlight because I know a lot of people were always asking about what can we do with online shopping. CB Commerce is a perfect answer for that. And the videos, everyone wants to know where they can get them. CFcast is going to be the home for that. So very cool.
Yep.
So
Command 6, don't get greedy, John.
yeah. And so the ColdFusion 6 release candidate is being worked on as well. Luis did a lot of work, and he's actually going to get another update for that release candidate out here pretty soon, just so you know as well. But like I said, check out those keynotes and get the full breakdown of everything we've announced this last week or two. Also, a reminder for a State of the CF Union survey. So please go fill that out. Do you know when that closes, Brad?
No, I don't. I don't know when the final date for that is. I don't know if it's published. I think some years they may just keep it up until they kind of stop getting input on it. But I'll have to
Yeah.
ask on that.
So if you look here on the TerraTech site, the questions are pretty straightforward. Giving you lots of options for everything. There are a few pages, but it doesn't take too long. Maybe about 4 or 5 minutes to get through the questions, and then more importantly is the answers. And they've got a completed or partial completion stats, but you really want to get the rest of them in here so we can dive on that. But I know we shared some of the stats in our keynote about some of the downloads and stuff like that. So
Yeah, some of the coolest statistics from our keynote and into the box was the usage of Docker. And John Clausen had shared, I believe it was 900% increase in the number of polls that our Ortus command box Docker images had since the same stat he had pulled last year at the previous into the box.
yeah,
So the usage of our Docker images, just based on the number of polls they're getting, has been astronomical, which is really cool to see. Both because I'm glad people are using the command box images, but also just because I'm super excited to see the ColdFusion community, jumping on deployment things like that. To be honest, the first time I heard of Docker, I thought to myself, yeah, it'll be 15 years before anybody uses this in ColdFusion. And while it's still not the primary source of deployment, it's picked up a lot faster than I originally thought it would. So it's
yeah,
really cool to see those kind of statistics every year.
yeah. It's kind of proud too to say that command box images are used more than the Adobe images and the Lucy images combined.
Yeah, that was one of my statistics. Is people use the command box image more than they use the official Lucy and Adobe images. So we we do our best to build a better mousetrap. I don't know if we always succeed, but at least I'm glad people are getting use out of them.
Yep,
They're
exact.
useful for somebody.
Yeah, probably just us, but but no, there's a lot of good people supporting some good sessions there. We had Joe Lord from Red Hat Shift come and do a talk on Kubernetes, and John did a good talk on containers and Docker, and obviously I did a deploying Docker one as well. So a lot of good content
Mm-hmm.
there. So okay, well let's jump into the conferences next. So
Actually, really quick before we leave into the box, for anyone who wasn't an attendee, but they're hearing all this stuff and they're thinking, man, I want to watch some of these sessions. Do we have information on what it'll take them to be able to purchase the recordings after the fact if they didn't already attend into the box?
So CFCast site itself will have the registration form that you can basically purchase that. So the previous years are up on Vimeo. So Vimeo has on-demand packages where you can get ITB 2018 and 2019 for $9.99 each. Those are heavily discounted, so I don't have the official price yet for the videos, but as soon as the CFCast site is up, the existing attendees will be able to enter it for free, and those others will be able to purchase the package there.
Perfect. So let's do it right there from CFcast.
Yep.
Excellent.
So that's the plan. So we'll make a big announcement as soon as that's available. You'll see a blog post, and we'll talk about it here. But yeah, so CFcast, and we should have that information for you very soon. We're trying to get it out because, like I say, everyone wants to see the videos they missed when they're attending. Because 2 tracks means there's always something you're missing, and there was a lot of good content. It was a really hard decision most of the time. So. Okay.
Okay, we can move on.
Okay.
Move on.
Yep. Just for those, I know John Farrell's going to ask, when are the workshops going to be announced for Into the Box? They'll be announced very soon. We're finally unwinding from Into the Box, so we haven't forgotten about the workshops. But there's another conference actually today. It's the Open Source 101 online conference. That's Tuesday, May 12th. So it's already started. You may have missed a bit of it, but if you want, you can register at opensource101.com and maybe check out a few sessions there. Next week, though, as we mentioned, Adobe ColdFusion Developer Week. So that's May 18th through the 22nd online. 2 sessions a day, 10 sessions through the week. So just a reminder, that one is next week. And as well next week, Microsoft Build. So Microsoft Build's doing their conference May 19th and 20th, and they've got some crazy 48-hour digital experience where they're going to be doing a lot of live sessions, rebroadcasting after the fact certain sessions. They're spreading things out so they're in all different time zones for all around the world so they can watch. And so it's going to be a very interesting online virtual conference for them. So you can get more information at mybuild.microsoft.com. And again, this is another free conference, and they've got a lot of great content, a lot of modern things going on there, because obviously Microsoft's doing some good things lately, right, with VS Code and GitHub, and now they're taking over NPM. And I remember when Microsoft first took over GitHub, everybody was scared like it was the end of the world. And now, not so much. So
Yeah,
so that's
interesting
stuff.
stuff.
And then if you want more, it looks like there's another conference, DockerCon, May 28th, right, Brad?
Little thing called Docker.
Yeah.
So it's of course a digital as well. So 1 day, and it's actually free. So if you want to go to DockerCon, it looks like you just have to register. So reading through stuff here, 3 simultaneously streaming channels to jump between is what it says. So
Yep. So
sounds like quite a bit of stuff.
yeah, they'll be doing recorded sessions, and the presenters will be chatting live with, as you go, and they'll be doing interviews and live sessions as well. So pretty interesting. There's a lot of good content going on there. So as Scott said, we pretty much got half a DockerCon into the box because there was like 3 or 4 Docker sessions, and we admit pretty popular Docker, but yeah, DockerCon is going to be great. I'm going to be signing up for that one for sure. So very cool. CF Summit West. I heard on the Tweeterverse last night that some inside information from a couple of Adobe people said that CF Summit West is almost going to be announced as an online conference. Almost. So they're getting very close to making that decision. If not, it will be happening at October 28th and 29th at the Mirage Hotel in Vegas, but quite possibly this will be converting to an online conference very soon. We still haven't heard any word about call for speakers or anything like that. They're probably trying to wait until they define exactly what they're doing, virtual or not. But we should have some information very soon. We'll chase down the Adobe team, maybe bug them next week at the online conference and try and get an answer out of them for you. CF Camp, we're still in holding pattern there, waiting to see what happens.
No information on that yet.
Yep. We did look and see if any of the other conferences, like NCDevCom, etc., are coming back, but it looks like this time they're still in the ether. So, be good to see a few more conferences. I remember going to like Miracon as well, and they had several of those. So, you know, pretty sad we don't have as many conferences. But as well as that virtual conference went, a lot of people are asking for more into the box, and I think Luis even likes the idea. So we might be having, bringing out Ortus Developer Week time slot back in, or doing something like that. So we might have
We can
to.
just do more webinars. I mean, because the webinars do kind of took the place of, to a degree, of the developer week, but they kind of all merged together since everything turned virtual this year.
Yeah, I don't know. So we might have some more coming for you later in the year too, especially if travel is restricted still. We may have to do something, but it was a good experience, and I'm glad that conferences are still continuing to go on, and we still had some fun. And just the open mic sort of discussion, like we recorded the day one, the day two, we just sort of sat around after and talking for quite a while, and
People
everything's
didn't want it to be over, man.
yeah, just hanging out. People were getting the drink of their choosing and just sitting down, chit chatting a little bit, and it was good. So we had some first time into the box attendees and some returners, and yeah, I know a lot of the speakers are pretty happy with the way things went, and yeah, there's lots of slides and tweets out there for you guys too to go check out what they've done if you did miss it.
Yeah,
Okay.
the way I kept track on the Tweety pages is I just had a little stream in Hootsuite where I just searched for the hashtag into the box. I usually do that during conferences. I think most people use the into the box hashtag,
Yeah,
or
or
I
ITB
saw a few people
2020.
use ITB 2020. So
That was the official hashtag, but no one tells everybody, so they use both.
yeah, I use into the box in all mine, but I'm a rebel.
Yep.
Between the two of those, you can find most of the tweets that were going on.
Yep. So we'll be compiling all that stuff as well, but a lot of people are sharing their slides and everything too. So, but speaking of blog posts, let's talk about the blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So
Do
obviously
it.
we had a busy week with the conference, so I did try and find some non-conference related stuff to talk about in here. So there's a little bit. So Will DeBruin actually released his third in his CB Security series today called
Mm.
Security Rules. So he talked about CB Auth in the previous one, and then basically talked about how annotations are easy to understand as a good starting point, but sometimes you need more flexibility with security rules, and this is where the security rules in CB Security kick in. And so uh, he he wrote a pretty positive post here. I'm going to share my screen for those who are watching. So he goes in some detail like when you'd want to use them, talking about some of the properties of a rule. And so this is sort of the breakdown of how a rule's made. We've got whitelist, secure list, a match, roles, permissions, redirect, override event, use SSL, action, and module. So he talks about whitelist and secure list. So this is a really good documentation. If you really want to go through, he's even got a nice diagram here too. So really thorough. Will's been doing
Nice.
a lot of good documentation on this CB security, so he's really helping to get it up to speed. So if you guys are looking for using CB security version 2, definitely check out his blog series. It's good content.
I like that.
So I did lie. There's one blog post in here with the slides from Into the Box.
How dare you?
Yep. So Pete Freitag actually shared his continuous integration 0 to infinity. Um,
To infinity. Wow. He's out on everybody. We had like the 60 minutes and the like 0 to 60 in 60 seconds. Now we just have 0 to infinity.
yep. So
You can't one up that, man.
yep, so you can see his slides and his CI examples, which are pretty neat. And the cool thing I like about it is, he tries to show different versions, but the example app had GitHub Actions, which is pretty new. I haven't actually used that one yet. I know we use GitLab and Bitbucket and
Neither have I.
Circle
Yeah, it's
CI, and I mean,
been on my list to play with, so I'm glad that he's gone through it already.
yep, and he's using Minibox in here, which is his new Docker image based on a very tiny version of Command Box, which is pretty
Hmm.
cool. I know you've been using it for a couple of client projects too. So you guys
Yeah,
can
I'm
check
loving
this
me
out.
some mini box. So he's got this diagram on your screen shows a CF compile, Fixinator, test API, test box, lint, CF lint, code checker, Docker. It's like all the like steps of his job.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. One of the things I'm curious about is how fast the GitHub Actions are as far as spinning up the job and running it.
Yeah.
I know that it's kind of a reoccurring thing with some of our client work is, the build pipelines can take quite a while to spin up and do all the steps and complete, which can feel like forever when you're just trying to get it pushed out to production and you have to wait for the Docker image to build. It'll be interesting to see how quick Actions is to run stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure you get it faster if you just put skips and everything, so it just skips all your steps. But that kind of defeats the purpose of it, right?
Pro tips, pro
Yeah,
tip: skip your tests and your build will run faster.
yeah. Okay. So we had Benedell, and basically from the over the last week, he's been working with a data scientist, and so he says he thought he was pretty good with SQL. He's learned a few things, so he decided to share them. And so one of these blog posts here, he was looking at performing a left outer join on an inner join to write a more expressive SQL. And as usual, he's really thorough with his examples. And so this was talking about how someone might have a friend and their friend might have friends, and so you may not have friends that have extra friends though. So you have to do a friend, then you do a left outer join, and then if they have a relationship, then you'll do an inner join off of that friend relationship. And so he sort of walks through it and gives some examples and how the data difference and everything. So again, pretty useful. And then a little
I
bit.
never knew there was so much drama in writing SQL. Friends and non-friends. Man,
Yeah. So I'll share that one in the chat. And then we also
I
have.
already did.
Oh, you already did?
I'm a,
Oh, you're.
I'm a step ahead of you.
Okay, well, then you can share the next one while I open it on my screen here. So the next one is using select and union all to join SQL tables to a CSV data in MySQL. So this was interesting because he only had read permissions on the server he was working in. So he had to do some tricky stuff to get the CSV and the data sort of merged together. So, yeah, like I said, if you guys are working with SQL, there's always more to learn. There's always lots you can do, and I like the fact he was using multiple cursors to do some trickery too. So that's always cool.
Interesting, yeah.
Yep. So, but yeah, so a good little blog post there. I mean, I'm always learning more with SQL. Working with Eric and Quick and QB, there's definitely some tricks I learn along the way.
I thought you never have to touch SQL again once you use NullRam. Is that not how it works?
Well, the problem is that we have to help write Quick and QB to make it do what we want it to do. So,
Okay.
so yeah. But no, just learning. I mean, a lot of the times you're creating the Quick relationship. You have to sort of tell it how things should join and whatnot. So.
Yeah, you gotta describe it.
So next on the list, we have Brian Class, who did an awesome S3 presentation into the box. And so this is actually the second in his series, and the first one is later. I should probably fix the order here. But so he's basically doing an S3 series now. So beyond the basics of using AWS S3 and CFML, uploading a file via the AWS Java SDK. And so this session here, that he had was basically a nice run through of all this S3 stuff. But the series, if it's anything like the series he did last year, which was like 16 blog posts in the series, expect a lot of great content coming.
That's not a series. So. That's a book.
To be honest, Brian, you should probably turn it into a book. Call it the CFML AWS S3 book.
Gitbook, man. Put it on Gitbook as Markdown. You can use our command box Gitbook exporter to turn it into a PDF file. Boom, send it to print.
You should. It's a great one. So yeah, so this is the good first part. He talks about IAM permissions a little bit too, minimally, because that's the one thing is he's got a couple of sessions he's given previously about IAM and that whole nightmare. But but yeah, so a good content.
Yeah, and I mean we had Brian Class at Into the Box. I didn't get a chance to look at his session because I was monitoring the other room, but he had one called "I didn't know S3 could do that."
Yep.
So it's a lot of stuff that you can do with those Amazon Web Services that people don't always know about.
Yep, and so this is talking about the whole S3 series, and so he's going to talk about uploading a file to S3 via the AWS SDK, IAM permissions when using the SDK versus the CFML tags and functions, making S3 buckets private and using signed URLs, which is awesome. We should do that.
Yeah, we love
As
those.
he mentioned, never have public buckets. Like all those credit card companies that got messed up because it's easy to make them public to get accessible. No one's gonna find it. People will find it.
Yeah, you think it's a crazy URL. Nobody would guess it.
Yeah.
And we love the signed URLs because it's the age old thing of I have a big file, I want somebody to download it, but I need to secure it, but I don't want to have to redirect through a ColdFusion page to like serve up this huge file with CF content. And you put it on S3, you create this like signed URL that's only good for a certain time span from a certain IP address, and you can send that URL to the user's browser, and you just redirect, and they can hit S3 directly. There's a ton of great stuff you can do with S3 and those signed URLs, and those aren't even a new feature; been
Yep.
around forever.
Yep. He talks about encrypting objects at rest using different storage classes, which is really neat because they've added 2 or 3 more storage classes recently. So I really liked his explanation of that in this session. And then talking about object lifecycle flows and versioning on a bucket. And remember, every version it costs you. So yeah, his session was really good, and this is going to be a great series. So can't wait to read them all and get up to speed. I use AWS. We use it with clients, and I know a decent amount of it. But there's so much in it. They've got a lot of flexibility, which means there's a lot of complexity too. So, but yeah, so that was a good blog for sure, and I can't wait to see the rest of that. We also have another one from Ben Adele.
This has to be the shortest post I've ever seen Ben write. Like,
Well,
did he get sidetracked and forget to keep typing?
well, this was actually more of a design one, Brad. So this is perfect for
Oh,
you
okay.
because he's talking about how to use some design skills because he doesn't have any.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be a perfect starter course for you because you need
I'm
work
sure
on
he
that.
has more than I do.
So he was talking about using layer blend modes to highlight text in graphic design. So if you basically put an overlay and you make it transparent, it looks like this. But if you actually add a multiply to the overlay, then the yellow doesn't get washed out and the text shows through all the way. So um, you know just little things like that, blend modes on layers, pretty interesting. But yeah, so he says
Hmm.
probably a few people are out there laughing at his newbie graphic skills, but it took him years to figure it out. Yep,
Well,
all
there's
good.
always somebody else out there figuring out the same thing. So,
Yep, cool, cool. And then there is a blog post from Nolan too about speaking into the box. Obviously, it's
speaking of our conference last week,
yeah, but I just wanted to highlight this here because this is what we always have to highlight every single year. Here's his annual reminder that the majority of the conference is not ColdBox specific. Can we stop yelling this yet? Has everyone learned
no.
this by now? I hope so. Just in case, there you go. My talk on TestBox, for example, all the content will work on any CFML app. Yes, any, not just ColdBox apps. So yeah, so he talks, just about coming up, but I wanted to highlight that especially because every year people say I don't use ColdBox. Well, there's still a lot of good stuff in here you can use. I mean, I really like the Electron
Yeah.
app that Tony Junkies does too. So,
Yeah, I watched that session. That was pretty cool.
of course, he's using Quasar, which I love. So I was happy for him to do that.
As soon as the word quasar escaped his lips, I thought of you because you're always talking about quasar, Gavin.
That's pretty cool. You're gonna be using it for Command Box real soon. You don't even know it.
Let's do it. Let's quasar this baby up.
Cool. We also had a couple of blog posts as well. Right before Into the Box actually went live Thursday, so it was after our last episode. So we had one there, basically a Meet the Speaker on Matt Clemente. So he's been doing a lot of great live streams and everything. So if you want to learn a little more about him, we have a blog post on that. And then we also had one thanking TerraTech becoming a bronze sponsor as well. So they joined us, became a sponsor. So we definitely appreciate all the sponsors, all the speakers, and all the attendees for making it such a great conference. So, okay, so like I said, with Into the Box, we actually had a pretty light week for that, but there's still an opportunity to find a job. So we got 2 new ones this week. So it looks like they're looking at a ColdFusion programmer in Washington, D.C., full-time, and a full-time ColdFusion software engineer in Washington, D.C. So those are both posted on May 7th, and those are available on the getcfmljobs.com website, where they're listing 24 current ColdFusion positions from 17 companies across 15 locations and 5 countries. So if you guys are looking for work, there's a good amount of jobs up there still, and remember that site is a ColdFusion site. They scrape a lot of other job sites and everything too, so they've got lots of good content. So save yourself some time and check that out.
Get yourself a job, or maybe that coworker of yours you really dislike. You can like be like, "Hey, shouldn't you start looking?"
You trying to get rid of me, Brad?
I haven't started sending you links yet.
Sure. I saw you copy that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So now,
Well,
ForgeBox
what's,
module of the week.
yeah, what do we have this week?
Well, one of the other announcements from last week was the ColdFusion Debugger version 2.0.0. And so this is a big update here. And so this is a module that will enhance your application with debugger capabilities. So it basically pops out a nice little debugging panel for you, so you can make your ColdFusion application development nicer. And Luis even says funner is actually a word. But
I think it should be spelled with two N's if it is, but hey, I guess
yeah,
we'll
that's
let
what I
him
would
make it
think.
up however he wants to.
Yep. So the cool thing is if you have the ColdFusion debugger, make sure it's a development dependency so it doesn't get installed with production. But basically, you can change your settings, and then the debugger runs at the end. It'll render out at the end of your request, and you can basically pop up different panels to see different things. And one of the big things with version 2 is did a lot of formatting updates, and then Eric got busy and built quick and QB panels into the
Got
CBDebugger now.
busy. I
So
like that. So, I don't know if you know the answer to this. Did the Quick and QB support have to be built into the debugger module, or are Quick and QB able to just like contribute that dynamically when the debugger is active?
currently, the way I think it's set up, I think it's basically built into the ColdFusion debugger right now. But I know they've been trying to plan a way for it to have a contributions from modules, so that it'll basically scan modules for debugger panels, and then you can include them on the fly. That's something we've
Well,
been wanting to do for a while, but I don't
I
think
don't
it's
think.
been
Well,
done
yeah.
yet.
This is more of an architectural discussion we could have later. But while I'm thinking of it, I don't know that you need to scan anything. The way that, for instance, command box bullet train works is it just announces an interception point, and any module out there that feels like listening to the interception point and responding can contribute cars into the train. So
Yeah,
that's how like the command box service manager module is able to add a car into your bullet train. And there's no code in bullet train written for that other than the announcement of an interception point.
yeah,
So that might be something that we could look at adding to the debuggers. So, it could announce some sort of like, hey, anybody with debugging information, give it to me now. And then you could have a module out there listening to that, and they can contribute panels in, from a complete separate standpoint.
yeah. And so that would be pretty cool. I know that we were talking about that for version 2. I don't think they had time to roll it out before IDB. So,
Fair enough. Fair
but
enough. Yeah.
but yeah, it's kind of
So,
nice when you're working with QB and Quick to be able to go in there and look at your SQL right inside the debugger. So pretty interesting.
exactly. Yeah, and I tend to not use the built-in ColdFusion debugging a lot. Most I kind of got out of the habit because it would kind of screw up any Ajax calls and stuff that I had by putting junk at the end. I know you can turn it off, but I'd always kind of gotten out of the habit. And then I would just use if since I was always running ColdBox apps, I would just toggle on the ColdBox debugger, which gives you a lot of the same information.
Yeah, for sure. Yep, and then in the chat, some people are talking about having on the session list we need a dependency section. That's interesting.
Well, so we were talking about that came from Nolan's blog post when you said, most of the conference doesn't have anything at all to do with ColdBox, and then John Farrar said we could have two tracks, a into the box track and an out of the box track, and then so Scott has said, well, we should just have a dependency section, so each talk tells you what frameworks are a dependency.
Yeah,
And I said,
that
have a
makes sense too.
box.json.
Yep.
This is not a horrible idea though. Like, like tag our talks, like really like have like the logos of the products that are covered, or
Yep.
maybe none if it's just a random Kubernetes talk, which is like half of our talks.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing. Yeah. Obviously, the descriptions have a decent amount of information, but we can be more clear with those. So, but yep. So the ColdFusion debugger is out. The blog post isn't out yet. So once we have that out, you'll have a little more information. But the major features with version 2 is they dropped ACF11 support. Did
Wah,
that
wah, it's
formatting.
gone.
Yep.
Get it out of here.
And then they added those quick and QB panels. So if you haven't tried it out, you should go do that. It's pretty cool. They've done some improvements in that formatting updates. I think it really helped too, because it's been around a long time. We've had it for a long time now, and it's really needs a little bit more love. So maybe with the interception points, we can start adding a lot more goodness into it. If your APIs can throw all sorts of data at it too from the interception point and stuff, it may be pretty
Yeah, I
neat.
mean, I love being able to build stuff that's like extendable like that. So, based on what else you have installed, it gets stuff, contributed. Talking about all this booting ColdFusion 11 out to the door, which, I'll add has been out of core support since last April, I think,
Or more.
um, by Adobe. And of course, the extended support from Adobe means nothing. It literally means per their own documentation, they will help you upgrade. So, anyway, I pulled up the State of the CF Union survey partial results real quick just to see where CF11 was on the list. And it is behind 2016 and 2018. It's interesting. Adobe 2016 is the highest out of the Adobe engines. Lucy 5, 3 or later, actually beat all the Adobe engines, which is pretty crazy.
Hmm.
But yeah, so CF11, 132 respondents. Of course, that number by itself is sort of useless without it being a percentage, compared to 203 people using 2016, 186 people using 2018, 132 using CF11, and of course, 216 users said they were using Lucy 5 or later. So there's definitely quite a few people still on ColdFusion 11. When you get to ColdFusion 10, 9, and 8, those graphs are getting a lot smaller. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a decent chunk of people still floating around out there in ColdFusion 11. It's not that um, I don't know how to word it, but there's still quite a few people using it basically. But we had to start dropping support for the stuff, or otherwise we get stuck where we can't innovate, ColdBox and our modules and things like that because we can't use the latest features of the frameworks. So
Yeah, I mean, I know
I
there's so
always,
many cool language
yeah,
features we want to use, but oh, can't use that for another 6 years.
I know. I hate to drop a version because I know there's people out there that are like, oh, dude, I'm on ColdFusion 11 still. But it's like all the people on ColdFusion 2018 that really want to be able to dive in and use, arrow functions or closers or other, asynchronous features. And we have to be like, oh, sorry, we're still supporting ColdFusion 11. We can't do any of that. So,
Yeah,
you get to a point where you have
yeah.
to drop something.
It's even worse too when you get pull requests from people writing something. Like they're in the community, they're doing something to help you, and you're like, "Sorry, that won't work on CF11." They're like, "I know, so," and like the module's still
Yeah,
supporting it. Sorry.
like half of the array member functions weren't introduced until after CF11, and I try to go and use it, and I'm like, I can't use that one yet. Dang it!
Yeah, it
Definitely
happens.
been there.
Yeah, and as John Fryer says, modernize or cry.
Oh yes, you will cry,
Yeah.
weeping and nailing of teeth,
Okay.
nailing of teeth, gnashing of teeth. There's something happening with your teeth. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
All right, well with that, what do we have? A VS Code hint and tip and trick of the
Yep. And
week.
so this one just came out all over Twitter. I actually got a couple people send it to me as well in Slack. So this is the Draw.io VS Code integration by
What?
Deming Heinrichs.
I used to use Draw.io with Google Docs.
We
A little
do, and you
integration
still
there.
can. And the cool thing is that you can basically draw.io files directly in Drawer. You can drop them in, and the cool thing is you can do split editor. So you can go to XML mode below it, and so when you're resizing, like say you're dragging your objects in, you can actually resize and do all that via changing the XML code. So it shows it right up. It's pretty neat. So a lot of cool features. Like here's some little screenshots for those watching. You can basically just drag things over, make all the changes right inside of VS Code. It's pretty neat. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, and the cool thing is some of the Draw.io stuff actually allows you to take a diagram and actually generate code from it. So I think with some of the like view stuff, you can actually build out some of it and then create code from it, and it'll do it based on the names of your classes and your properties and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, but
All right.
this is a cool option here, the XML right below. So if you want to like make your images the little boxes a certain size, you can go in the XML and change the width and height. It's just way easier
It's
than using
even
arrow
more
functions.
powerful than the Google Docs integration.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So I saw that and I was like, ooh. I know I do a lot of diagrams for clients when trying to get complex workflows down. Anytime
Hmm.
you do a workflow including JWTs back and forth, got to do a diagram. So definitely be using
I'm
that.
just going to make a prediction. I think eventually there'll be so many VS Code extensions, it's just going to take over Windows. We won't even use Windows anymore or Mac. We'll just boot up computers directly into VS Code and it'll just do everything we need. I, I'm calling it right now. It's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so in the chat here, John Farrar says, "Is it the GitHub extension?" So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what you're asking there, John.
Yep, but definitely go check that out. You already shared the link in the chat there, so in the show notes you can check it out for everyone else. But it's just Draw.io. But yeah, pretty excited to see that up and running there. So next up we have our Patreon supporters, and as we mentioned before, thank you to our newest return supporter, Calvin Stenton. So he was at the conference last week, chatting a little bit with us in the open mic chats as well. So I'm glad to have him back supporting the Open Support Patreon.
Yeah, and he wasn't going to be able to come into the box when it was a physical conference, so the virtual format allowed him to be a part of that.
Very cool.
We had a handful of people like Kai Koenig who would have not been able to make the 10,000-hour flight, wouldn't have wanted to,
Yeah.
but was able to be there. Now, of course, his time zones were all wonky, but
It's okay. His
get the
cat woke him up at
recordings.
3 o'clock in the morning so he could watch the keynote, so it worked out.
I arranged with his cat for that to happen a full week ahead of time.
Oh, yeah. So thanks to all our Patreon supporters that you guys are personally supporting our open source initiatives, like our
Oh,
podcast as well as everything else. Yes, Brad.
sorry, I interrupt you all the time. Like John Farrar clarified what he was asking about with the GitHub thing. GitHub announced just last week, it was the day before Into the Box. That sort of like online development kind of thing. It reminded me of that Cloud9
Yep.
site that came out a few years ago where it had
The
like an Atom
AWS bought
based.
it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a totally not virtual, but a totally cloud-based editing environment with like a web browser-based editor, web browser-based, or cloud-based files. You could run the code all there in your browser. GitHub announced something that kind of sounded like that's the direction they were going, and that's what John Farrar was asking about in the chat. And I am really curious about that. Of course,
Yeah, well, VS
the per-
Code, the cool thing about it too is that it runs you could actually use it as your own editor if you wanted to include it in a blog, like the editor itself. I think it's Magnolia
oh
or
yeah,
something. I forget the name of it, but it's separate, and you can actually use that in browser
oh wow,
outside of VS Code. But yeah, they have VS Code browser versions and everything, and yeah, it sounds like
dang.
they're adding
Well,
into GitHub.
I loved what Scott Steinbeck did in this Into the Box session is he had his Raspberry Pi, which normally when I've done Raspberry Pi work, I like, SSH in, I install Nano, I edit the files in Nano. Well, now you can just run VS Code on your main computer and have it SSH in behind the scenes to the Raspberry Pi, and you get your entire development environment and console and everything as though you were running it on the Pi or whatever the remote server is.
Yeah, the VS
Um,
Remote plugins are pretty awesome.
yeah, that was really sweet.
Yep,
Anyway, we're like total VS Code fanboys here.
maybe.
So
Yeah.
many cool things.
Cool. Anyway, so back to Patreon supporters. Thank you for supporting us and our babble every week. But you also support things like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, ContentBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes. And all the money from Patreon goes to open source stuff, especially with our podcast here. So as we mentioned, we're almost halfway done to fully supporting it. And so we have a good number of sponsors here. And if you want to find out more, you can go to patreon.com/Ortus Solutions. And just so I can show their pretty faces on here for those of you who are watching, we have a couple in the Hall of Fame here on the Ortus Solutions About Us. So Don Bellamy and Eric Hoffman. These guys are extra special Patreon supporters, so they get to show up at the top of the page.
Nice.
But we also have some great partners and sponsors here as well. But here are our sponsoring individuals. So as you can see, we got a good number here. So thank you, Ben Adele, Brett DeLine, Calvin Stanton, Dali, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, David Bellinger, Tadia Lesnicki, Don Palamy, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Jan Yannick, Jeremy Adams, Jonas Erickson, Jordan Clark, Joseph Lamory, Kai Koenig, Laxmo Tedahadi, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Ryan Hughes, Scott Steinbeck, Sean Oden, Stephen Klotz, Synatrix, and Yogesh Messer. And if you guys are having a picture here that looks like a superhero and you want your real picture, send us one through and we can get that updated. And I'm surprised this one. Oh, there it is. There's Jordan Clark. So, yeah, thank you everybody for supporting us, and we really appreciate everything you guys do. And if you can't financially support us, pull requests, issues, being logged on all of our projects, all of that does count. It all helps, and we appreciate every single one of them.
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, we've had a great week this last week. Back to normal, though, so I guess we got to get some work done this week, Brad.
Yep. from our super crazy back to our just normal crazy. So
Yeah.
back to the grindstone.
Very cool. Okay. Well, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos.